So I said this year was going to be the year that I finally read Legendborn, and I picked it up and I'm already crying. So this book has been highly raved about, and I know within the past year the second book has come out. I think it's a duology. I think it's just supposed to be those two, but regardless, this has been on my TBR since it came out because look how gorgeous this cover is. One of my favorite book covers I've ever seen. I just spit. That was disgusting. But I picked it up and I read the prologue and I was already sobbing. The way that this author wrote grief, I can tell that I'm really going to enjoy her writing style. But basically, I'll just explain what happened in this in this prologue. So it starts off and our main girl is in the hospital, and police officers and like hospital staff are talking to her and her dad, explaining that her mom has passed away, and she's just like, I feel violated that my mom died and the world is just going on. Like, my whole world has stopped. Why hasn't the rest of the world stopped too? And I love that. I think it's so beautiful. It's described way better than how I just said it. But anyway, this book has to do, I believe, with like a magical school, and I've heard that it's Arthurian. I've also tried to avoid any fan art because I don't want to be spoiled for this series at all, but pretty much everybody gives this 5 stars, and I have just become in the very beginnings of my fantasy era. I am midway through the Avatar series, and I want to read a lot more fantasy, and so I thought that it would be perfect to go ahead and pick this up in between so I can get the rest of the books ordered. And yeah, I'm so excited. I have really high hopes for this one, and I'm really happy that I have vibed with the writing style so far.
I can't blame you, Marion. We both know who's to blame.
This is my 3rd time recording this damn clip because I wasn't recording it last time. But this clip serves no purpose other than the fact that I just wanted to show off my hair and makeup because it's like the first time I've put effort into those things all week, and I was like, I don't want it to go to waste. Anyway, I read the first chapter of Legendborn, and it was a nice action-packed first chapter. We get to see her go to this like sort of get-together that they do before the first day of school, like a tradition, and the kids like jump off this cliff into this lake or whatever. And we get to see that Bree is with her best friend, and her best friend is rather cautious, but Bree these days is getting a little bit more impulsive because she has this thing inside of her that she has nicknamed after Bree, which is a persona due to her grief that is basically her darker emotions, and she is not letting them out. And I think that the way that this author describes it is absolutely beautiful, and I will go ahead and read the quote that I highlighted because I'm obsessed with it. It says, "Where my eyes are brown, hers are dark ochre, crimson and obsidian of molten iron in a furnace, because after Bree is in a constant state of near explosion. The worst is at night, when she presses against my skin from inside and the pain is unbearable. We whisper together, 'I'm sorry, Mom, this is all my fault.' She lives and breathes inside my chest, one heartbeat behind my own life and breath, like an angry echo." Bars. Anyway, I'm gonna read more of that tonight. Oh, and I also have a annotation. I always write like what my annotations mean, but I have like important character info. I underline that in red, underline general info in black, underline creatures in purple, and then highlight good writing in purple. And then my tabs here are major plot point and fight. So anyway, I'm going to read more of this tonight. I hope this clip is the one that ends up making the video because I have decided I'm not recording it again. If it messes up, I'm just giving up. Okay, bye. Alright, so I am 114 pages into this book, and I am having a time so far. So for a moment there, everything was really going over my head, but I'll just explain to you my understanding of everything so far. So we have our main character Bree, of course, and her mom has recently passed away. She's now at this early college, like boarding school type thing. She's only 16 and it's been like 3 months since her mom has passed, but her and her best friend are at this like early college school. And Bree has snuck off campus, and she's some way or another has ended up seeing magic. She's seen a kid named Selwyn kill some sort of creature, and she's seen magic, and she knows that she was not supposed to see this. And Selwyn did try to wipe everyone's memory at this party, but for whatever reason it just did not affect Bree. She was able to resist it. She ends up getting in trouble for sneaking off campus, and so she's assigned this chaperone, this guy named Nick. And she very quickly ditches Nick whenever she sees some sort of magic in the distance. And so she bolts towards it. Nobody else on campus can see what it is that she's seeing. She's seeing like a creature, except for her and Nick. And so Nick basically saves her in the situation. And then he's like, why were you able to see that? Who are you? And she's like, well, who are you? And basically what we find out is that there's sort of this secret society, the order of something, I don't know. But they are a very historic society that exists. And so there are things called Onceborn, and this is where I got confused, but I think I get it now. There are things called Onceborn, which are basically like you and me, like people who don't know about the order, they're just normal people. And then you have Legendborn, which are people who are descendants of the families that created the order. So there was like 13 families, and so their descendants are called Legendborn. And then you have Shadowborn, which are demons. And then you have vassals, which are people who are once born, but for whatever reason, they have sworn themselves to the order, so like to the Legendborn families. And you have Merlins, which are sorcerers who can fight off the Shadowborn to protect the Onceborn. And then you have something called a page, which is basically a Onceborn or a vassal who would become, I think it's called a squire, who become a squire. And there's something called a scion, S-C-I-O-N, which I think are Legendborns who take their title. And so being a page to become a squire is like a mutually beneficial relationship between a Legendborn and a Onceborn. I don't exactly know how to explain it, but the Legendborn, once they take their title, they would become a scion, I believe. And then a vassal or a Onceborn who was a page, so who's in competition to become a squire, then gets that title. But they don't, I guess they're able to like have sight to be able to see the magic, but for whatever reason Bree can already see it and she can already resist it. So that's where we're at right now. And Bree is also the only person of color in this entire room. Like there's a lot of people there, and she's the only person who is a person of color, and it is definitely not lost on her. There's like a comment that's made, somebody looks around the room and they're like, this is our most diverse class yet, and she just feels really like offended by that, because she's like, so just because of my presence I mean something to you, now you can feel good about yourself just because I'm here. Also, I don't think I explained, Bree ends up explaining to Nick that she is able to resist the mesmer, Selwyn's mesmer of her memory. And she also explains that she thinks that a Merlin may have been responsible for her mother's death, and that's why she's wanting to know more about the order. And so he decides that he is going to take her on as his page, and he's going to claim his title as Scion, but it seems like he really does not want to, because in the past he has like given up the title, or like, I don't know what the word is, but he really does not want to do this. But at this point, 114 pages in, the decision has pretty much been made that Bree is going to be competing now. And she is a little bit saddened by the way that it's affecting Nick, because she can tell he doesn't want to do it. And then also some really important information has just been let on about Nick, which is that he is King Arthur's descendant. And at first I was like, how did she come up with that information? But like, it literally says in the previous page, Scion and heir. So I don't know how I missed that, but I keep missing information, which is why I'm glad that I am annotating and like color coding my annotation so I could go back. But I swear I'm like focused, I'm not bored, I'm wide awake, and things just keep slipping over my head. So that's why I was having kind of a tough time. But I went back and like reread some of the stuff that I had annotated, and I think I'm getting it now. Alright, another update. So I got to page 173 or so. And what's happened now is that there was a demon attack, but it was like a coordinated demon attack, and a lot of people got really hurt within the order. And Nick ended up getting really hurt. But during that, William, the healer, he took Bree to like underground on the building that they use, and there's like this big thing that shows all of the family trees of everyone, and he explains a lot of backstory. It's like a really good info dump, and I like a good info dump whenever I know what's going on. I like a good info dump. He explained that the Legendborn are from King Arthur's like round table knights, and so they're like the descendants of them. And then once the descendants get the awakening, they would gain the power from King Arthur's knight. The squire will also get some of the power from the Legendborn person, which the Legendborn person will become a scion or scion. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they'll become one of those once they take, like, once they have their title or whatever. So he explains all of that, and then Bree goes back to campus and she connects with Sarah, who takes her back to campus, but then Cell is there, and Cell is drunk off the Aether. He's like Aether drunk, essentially. And he's like, he's on her like ass, because he's very suspicious about Bree. But anyway, Bree goes to her dorm, and Alice is there, and Bree is covered in like a bunch of stuff from this attack, and Alice thinks that something really bad has happened to her, and so they kind of reconnect, and they tell each other sorry, and Alice helps Bree take a shower. And while Alice is gone and Bree's still in the shower, she has all these red flames that appear on her skin, and she can't make them go away. The only way that she's able to is by putting all of her like mental walls up, and the mental walls that she uses to block out after Bree from like coming up to the surface. And she's like, why am I covered in all of these flames? And then she ends up getting in trouble. Like, Alice tells her dad that Bree had come back late, and so her dad tells her that she has to start going to therapy twice a week. And he's gotten her with a therapist that used to know Bree's mom whenever they were both at the school together back in the day. And so Bree goes to the Arboretum, I don't know how you pronounce that word. And she's talking with the therapist, and the therapist is like, and so she's talking with the therapist, and the therapist asks, are you not a wildcrafter like your mother? And at this part, I was like, girl, what the fuck? A what? And she tells her that a wildcrafter is someone who can manipulate plant energy, and her mom used to do that. Bree has no idea that her mom used to do that. And also the therapist herself is a wildcrafter. She then explains that different wildcrafter can see auras. And so I don't think Bree's mom or the therapist, I think her name is Patricia, I don't think they could, but there was like another girl who went to school with them at the same time who she could see auras. And Bree is like mind fucked by this. And then Bree is trying to get more information, and the therapist is like, look, I don't think your mom wanted you to know all of this for whatever reason, so I'm just gonna stop talking. And Bree's like, no, like, tell me. And Bree tells her, I know what Aether is. And that's when the therapist says, hold on, it's a good quote. She says that Aether is a word that's not used by your mother's people. And Bree's like, what do you mean my mother's people? The therapist is like, her people, our people. She says, we are the descendants of those who developed the craft, and we do not call the invisible energy of the world Aether. We call it root. And so basically, her mom also has magical powers, and it's become apparent to Bree, like, it would make sense for her mom to want to keep those powers on the DL whenever the Order exists, and they kind of have a claim on magic, and they call it something completely different. And also, the Order is very white, and then the Wildcrafters, from everything that's been shared so far, are black women. So, you know, it would make sense. Also, really quickly, I just wanted to share that at some point, whenever William was telling Bree all of the info dumpy stuff about the Order, he told her, or he starts showing her the family tree, and Bree starts to feel some type of way because she's like, you can trace back all of these centuries of people, and yet I don't have that. And so there was this really beautiful quote that like really made me emotional. Then a rush of frustration because someone probably wanted to record it all, but who could have written down my family's history as far back as this? Who would have been able to, been taught to, been allowed to? Where is our wall? A wall that doesn't make me feel lost, but found. A wall that towers over anyone who lays eyes on it. Instead of awe, I feel cheated. They kissed, and I was like kicking my feet. It was so cute. Oh my God, I love them. I love them. So it's the next day, and I've just been reading some more. And I did want to say this yesterday, but I forgot to. I am super excited about Bree and Nick, but I feel like there's going to be a little bit of character assassination for Nick and kind of a redemption arc for Cell. I just feel like the way that it's being set up, it makes sense for Cell to start looking more like the good guy, a little bit more like misunderstood. Maybe he misjudged. I don't know. But I really hope that's not the case because I like Nick and Bree together. So they just got done with their second trial, and Cell set Bree up, but then there were some Shadowborn that attacked them, and Bree's powers came out, and so now Cell knows about them, but her and Cell sort of kind of had a moment, and now he doesn't believe that she's Shadowborn anymore, which is good, but he does still believe that she's a threat. And then Nick punches Cell whenever he finds out, and I can just tell with the way that's being written, it was that Cell, because of the oath, he can't punch Nick back. But and so in Bree's like narration, she's saying she never expected that Nick would exploit the oath that way, because Cell can't harm Nick, but Nick can harm Cell. Alright, so I'm just updating because I woke up this morning like 40 minutes earlier than I normally do, and the only thing on my mind was reading this book. And so I read maybe a chapter or so, and got ready for work, decided I was going to bring the book with me, and I've been sitting at my desk annotating and tabbing and stuff in between calls, and this book is so good. and I can see why everybody else is obsessed with it. So there's just been like some really good twists that have happened. We found out that Bree is a medium through her family line. So her family has, her family is blood, something blood, which basically means that they've stolen magic somewhere along the line so that everybody has powers. And, but that also means that her family owes a debt to, I don't know to who. But so she's finding out a lot about her family, and she's also found out that she has medium powers, and a lot of other things. And so she's bonded a lot with Cell recently as well, and the way their relationship is taking form, I'm like, what? Oh, also, Cell used to have a crush on Nick. Interesting. So Bree goes to the ceremony that they were having, and Nick chooses her to be his squire, and everyone's like really shocked and pissed off. And then Bree gets kidnapped, and they bring her friend Alice in and say that they're going to take away all of Alice's memories, unless Bree agrees to like go her separate ways, from and not become a Legendborn. So that's where I'm at right now. I only have about 70 pages left. So we are coming down the home stretch. It's the final 65 pages or so. I've got my glasses on, I got my annotation stuff, I got my candle, I got my ASMR. Let's do it. So they decided that they were gonna take this underground like tunnel system to get to the Excalibur gate or whatever in the center of campus, because they believe that's where Nick's dad took Nick, hoping that, I guess, to like force Nick to call on Arthur or whatever. But while they were doing so, they ended up in this part of a tunnel that opened to like a ravine or something, and they're like scaling a wall, because there's one wall. They're scaling this wall, and they end up getting attacked by these creatures, and unfortunately Fitz died. So you get to see what happens whenever a Scion dies. His Aether weapon just like disappeared, his armor disappeared, and so did Evan's weapons and stuff too. So Evan has been dead this whole time, and he's actually like a Shadowborn thing that has been pretending to be him. And you know what? Right whenever this is about to get revealed, I was just thinking, like, wasn't Evan kind of low-key racist to Bree at the beginning? Like, is he getting just like, are we just forgetting about that? But I get it now. He was probably low-key racist, and before he actually had the chance to get like a character, like someone like talking sense into him and letting him know like, hey, you're being fucking weird, he was killed off. So he never got the opportunity to learn his lesson. And now Bree has just kicked the fuck out of this creature, and turns out her grandma's telling her in her mind that the cave is right behind her. By the way, don't know if I mentioned that, Bree has her grandmother inside of her head, and it hasn't really come up that strongly yet. Like, it hasn't been that important, but just so you know, grandma, she's in there. Oh my god. Stop it. Bitch, what the fuck? I have so many questions, and I have 20 pages to get answers. Okay, so here's my understanding of things. Whenever Vera was showing Bree the old memory, she was showing her that either Vera herself or their ancestor was impregnated by someone who had Arthur's lineage. And therefore, whenever that person made the Bloodcraft oath thing, it tied Arthur's lineage into Bree's family, in addition to just the fact that they have magic, but it'll just be one daughter at a time. The way that this is all coming together, Tracy Dion, her mind, and who the fuck let Tor talk? And Alice, she's a real one. I like Alice. Alright, so I'm unsure if this is going to be the last clip in the vlog or if I'm going to continue on, but basically, I finished Legendborn and it's my new favorite book. I've had the same favorite book since summer 2020. So for me to have a new all-time most favorite book is a really big deal. The twists were so good, like the reveals, I guess, were so good. I love the characters. I love Bree. At first I was like, well, she's just being like a rebellious, you know, like, I don't know, I kind of thought she was going to get pigeonholed into being just too stubborn, too rebellious, and not having any other personality traits. But she was such a good character. Alice grew on me. I liked her dad. I liked her mom. I liked Nick. I loved Cell. Like, I loved all the characters except the ones that were being racist. And, you know, as far as race goes, I love the way that it was put in this story, because at first I kind of didn't know how is Bree's race going to play a part in this book. And then the way that it does is just so, chef's kiss. Like, I don't know, I just, it was so shocking, but I think it was shocking for a story like this, not shocking for like its actuality considering American history. But I thought that played such a good part in the story. I love the quotes, the way that race was talked about whenever Bree's looking at the wall and she's angry that she doesn't have a wall of her family ancestry and what that feels like. And I don't know, that was one of the parts of the book that I wanted to cry at. And then I did vlog throughout the end of me absolutely sobbing through various plot points. And yeah, oh my god. So as soon as I finished that book, actually before I finished, I went ahead and ordered Bloodmarked from Book of the Month. And I have it. I have started it. I have tabbed one thing. And I bought new tabs because I was running out of red, and I'm marking red for action for this book. Bought new tabs, and I am rocking and rolling. But anyways, yes, that is everything that I have to say. I apologize for this camera angle, me being down here. It looks so terrible. I'm so happy. I love this author. I love this book. I love both these books. Okay, bye.